Hey, how's it going? It's Weed, Chapter 8, talking about nutrition. One of the vitally important chapters. Not that any of them are more or less important, but this is certainly one of the major ones because the food choices that we make are going to have a direct impact on a number of our health and wellness factors moving forward in the future. Along with physical activity, nutrition are the two biggest ones. And heredity, hence the 5-paragraph written essay. So chapter 8 is going to be talking about nutrients, and you should have learned about these previously, so we're not reinventing the wheel or anything. If you look at the meme there from T-Nation, if someone asks you if you're a health nut, which generally has a negative connotation because you're too concerned about your health and well-being, why wouldn't you want to be concerned about that? Then if they don't do that, are they a death nut based on their nutritional choices? Makes you think. So we talked about chapter 7, and you had the homework assignment to complete, looking at two different types of lifetime activities and relating to those. How sustainable are they? How do they impact your health-related physical fitness? How do they impact your physical literacy? And do they challenge the edge of your ability? So for chapter 8, this is a video which we posted on the webpage that you can watch, and he's talking about, those are sugar cubes right there, and about how sugar from the 1970s, and we'll see some other videos and other presentations, how the increase in sugar has also seemed to have come along at the same time where we have an increase in overweight and obese people. So is there a connection between that? So if you watch that, which is not required, it's from Reason Magazine, which is a libertarian magazine. He'll tell you about the smoking gun of sugar and what it looks like. So chapter 8, list the essential nutrients and describe their functions. We're going to have 6, which are also in the 5-paragraph written essay, so you want to know what those are. There's going to be 6 questions on the final that are multiple select, where you have to identify the information. Look at the U.S. government dietary guidelines. Remember chapter 1, I talked about confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance, or was that the beginning of the semester? Who knows? Long time ago we talked about that, so you want to check those out and think about those terms. Confirmation bias, cognitive dissonance, and when it comes to eating. Look at special populations and vegetarians, how to use a food label, and make a personal food plan that promotes wellness. In my face-to-face classes, what I normally do on day 1 is I provide information to them. I give them a number of different food labels from products that I eat, and so we kind of go through and look at those, and I'm not trying to hide anything. I don't judge your Cronometer, which is an assignment which we'll talk about, and therefore don't judge what I eat. But we'll look at those, and how do you read those? What are some of the important topics that you want to know by looking at the food label? So what do you know about nutrition and maintaining a high level of wellness? Take some time, pause the video here to think about everything that you know or you think you know about that. So on a daily basis, where are you? Later on in the presentation, there'll be an opportunity where you can actually do a little artwork and fill in where you think that you are. So on your daily nutritional choices, are you closer to premature death or are you closer to optimal wellness? If you could make one nutritional change right now that you would be able to sustain for the rest of your life, what would it be? You don't have to answer that. So nutrition is the science of food and how the body uses it in health and disease. And then there are essential nutrients. There are 45 that are broken down. We're going to break those down into proteins, fats, carbs, vitamins, minerals, and water. For the final exam and for good health, you want to know what are the 2 types of proteins, fats, carbs, vitamins, and minerals. Which of these are macronutrients that provide energy? What are the recommended dosages, etc.? So what are the 6 essential nutrients? We just had them on the previous slide. So here's what they look like. And notice, for most of these, there are sources that are in both animal and plant products. So depending on your values and the way that you eat, you can find those either as a vegetarian or as an omnivore, which eats both vegetables and animal products. Not so much in water, though. So a macronutrient needs a large amount of that every day, and they also provide energy, which we'll talk about in the form of calories. So when the bros are asking about what are your macros looking like, they're talking about what's your energy looking like. What are those three? Fats, proteins, and carbs. Micronutrients are the other ones which are essential to good health. You need those. And then digestion is the process of breaking that down into usable sources. So if you recently ate whatever that food source was, you don't have little bits and pieces of it flowing through your blood vessels. What is happening is that you have them into your body, and you have the physical digestion of chewing, and the chemical digestion starts in your mouth with saliva. And so you continue going on with that. And then this is what it looks like. We're going to have the opportunity to watch a short video after this is over. You can log into that and see what those are. So there's the process of how it works. And it talks about not only the main organs and peristalsis and how it goes through the body and how it's absorbed in the system, but also some of the enzymes and other items that are going on. So I said about energy. So energy is measured in calories. So the macros, fats, proteins, and carbs, each have calories. 4 for carbs, 4 for protein, and 9 for calories. And so we'll find out in Chapter 9 about where did that 2,000 come from, and is that effective for everyone else? But you certainly want to know what this is all about. So protein is essential. The building blocks are amino acids, and that helps us with muscles and bones. So you can see what is going on here. What are the top sources of protein foods? Top 11 from wherever that was. Dr. Axe, I don't know who he is, but I saw the picture. So we get plant and animal sources. If you are a vegetarian, you don't eat any animal products, or a select few, then you need to learn about incomplete protein combinations. They don't have all of the essential amino acids where complete proteins do. So you can determine what is best for you. Fats or lipids are the next one, and there's different types. There's saturated and unsaturated fats. Which of those two is generally considered the unhealthy type? The answer would be saturated fats. And there's different types of unsaturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated. And again, found in plant and also animal. That's a plant. Nuts and seeds are plants. Butter is animal. As a human being, you create your own cholesterol, so you don't need to get that from outside sources. Hydrogenation is where they fill up the bonds on the hydrogen, and therefore it doesn't break down as fast in those products, and unfortunately that's also unhealthy. Some cities have banned trans fatty acids or trans fats. So there's two different types. You'll hear about this again when you talk about heart disease. HDL is high density lipoprotein. That is the healthy type. You want to have over 40 on that when you get your blood tested. And LDL is low density lipoprotein. You want to have below 130 for that. But cholesterol is necessary. As animals, as human beings, we produce our own cholesterol because it's necessary. Carbohydrates, those are carbs. You hear a lot of negative things about those. There's different types. There's simple, complex, and there's also fiber. In our book and in the 5-paragraph written essay, you want to use the 6. Fiber is sometimes called number 7, but it falls under carbohydrates currently on our food label. So we have glucose and glycogen. Glycogen is stored in livers and muscles so that you don't necessarily have to eat breakfast. You might not feel well if you don't eat breakfast and work out, but you still have energy. If you deplete that in your muscle, that's called bonking. It's not a good experience. And we want complex carbohydrates. So simple and complex are the two types. If you watch this video later, number 1, it's the guy speaking Dutch, which is found in the Netherlands, and there's also English subtitles. So this guy in the Netherlands for 1 month totally restricted his diet so that he ate no extra alcohol, excuse me, not alcohol, no extra added sugars. I just saw alcohol there, so I said that. So no added extra sugars in his diet. And you can find out because he pre-tested and post-tested. Remember, your sample size is 1. His sample size is 1. So results may vary, and it takes a lot of discipline. When it comes to complex carbohydrates, the reason why it's called complex is because it's whole grains. It's not processed, so you have this. If you've ever made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on white bread, it doesn't stay together as well as if you make it on whole wheat. So whole wheat is healthier. It's also got some fiber in there. So you want to be aware of added sugars. It is pervasive. Almost every food product, if you look at the food label, there is added sugar. And in the 80s and early 90s, that's when non-fat and low-fat came into effect. And you heard a lot of people advertising that. What they didn't tell you is that if it's non-fat, they threw a ton of sugar in there. So you want to be aware of that. And those are empty calories. There are no vitamins in simple sugar. So if you eat candy or drink soda, there are no vitamins in there. So that's not very good for you in terms of what's going on. And also our hormone response. We'll see that in one of the videos coming up here. So you can see from the late 80s and early 90s what happened to the obesity rate. From 1990 to 2000 to 2010, this is when fats were bad and carbs and sugars were okay. And look what's happened. Now we've had other societal changes as well. We've seen this picture before. So it's not just the food, but it's also the level of activity. Here's a video you can watch later about what happens if you drink sugary drinks and sodas, such as Gatorade has a lot of sugar, or Powerade. They have a lot of sugar. Our bodies were not made to process that, and we store it in our body. Dietary fiber. They're soluble and insoluble. Do most American diets have a high level of fiber in them? The answer is no. Why? Because we like our food processed. And when it's processed, they take all the fiber out of that. So eating fruits and vegetables helps increase your amount of fiber, which helps to clean out your colon or your large intestine, which is part of your digestive system. Vitamins, again, no energy whatsoever, but they're vitally important. So the two categories are water soluble and fat soluble. So you want to know that. 2 types of carbs, simple, complex. 2 types of protein, complete and incomplete. 2 types of fats, saturated and unsaturated. So here's 2 types of vitamins. Fat, A, D, and K, and then water soluble, B and C. And B is the B complex, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, folate, vitamin B12, biotin, and pantothenic. So again, you can get those in fruits and vegetables and also in animal products because some of those animals eat that stuff. We eat those and we get those vicariously through the animal. So there's good stuff in the vitamins which help our body to work well. Red blood cells, nervous system, skeletal system, antioxidants, etc. And on the final, it's not like this is a master's level nutrition class. I had a master's level nutrition class when I was in school, and we had to know all of the essential nutrients. We had to know what the sources, good sources of those, what happens if you have a deficiency and what they did in the body. That's just stupid memorization. Now there's this new thing called the internet. So minerals, again, are inorganic compounds. Think it's the periodic table where you had that in chemistry and you looked at all the different chemicals. So these are chemicals. So calcium is Ca. Iron is Fe. You need those in differing amounts, macro and trace, so large and small amounts. If you don't get enough iron, you have anemia. If you don't get enough calcium, you can have osteoporosis. Water is also important. There are not 2 types, salt and fresh, or bottled and not bottled. They're just water. I don't know if using Usain Bolt here as the typical male human being is the best idea, but males typically have about 61% water. Women are about 56%. So there's a number of factors that determine that. How often do you sweat? How often do you drink beverages? How active are you? All of those items. So when you're sleeping, unless you hook yourself up to an IV, you are dehydrating yourself because water is necessary for some of those chemical reactions in your body. You're sweating, you're breathing, all of that is getting rid of water droplets. So if you don't like drinking straight water, here are top 10 hydrating foods. And look, watermelon, they're so unoriginal, they just called it watermelon. So this is a part, if you're playing along at home, where you can draw on this and figure out, are you closer to death nut or health nut on a day-to-day basis, week to week, month to month, year to year? So should you take dietary supplements? That's a good question. And if you do, what are the consequences of that? The next slide or two is going to be about Labdoor. And Labdoor, all it does is, you can watch the video, they go and they look at these products and they say, yes, the calcium that's sold by whoever sells it, it is 100% calcium as it says on the label. It doesn't say that it works or not. They have protein and other items that are there. It doesn't say whether it's effective. It says whether or not what they say on the label is found in their research. So that's an important thing to do before you go there. So they talk about fish oil in this video, which is, again, by reason. If you watch that, I think they said a quarter or 1/3 of the fish oil that you find on supermarket shelves or in stores are rancid. That's disgusting. So where do the dietary guidelines for Americans come from? We don't do real well, and we'll see in a future slide, about eating vegetables and fruits and whole grains. But we are really good at sodium. And we don't meet the physical activity. So this is intake not meeting recommendation. Looks, fruits and vegetables, not meeting that. Total grains, not meeting that. Dairy, not meeting that. Protein foods, oils. But look, we're killing the added sugars, we're killing the saturated fat, and we're killing sodium. So when you do your Cronometer, which is you evaluate 3 days of eating food, 2 weekdays, 1 weekend, and you put it in the Cronometer, and there's a homework assignment. You can find that on D2L. Upload that before the due date, and that is also paragraph 2 of the 5-paragraph essay. So you need to have the Cronometer due to get points on there. Scoring high on sodium intake, not a good thing. So think about the last time you went out to eat. This is what the government recommends that your plate should look like. Was half of your plate fruits and vegetables? If you went out to eat, more than likely you were looking for a really big protein, correct? And where did the government come up with this? Again, not being conspiratorial when it comes to this. But they're also the ones who recommended low fat and non-fat. So maybe that might not be the best. Is there one kind of diet that is best for everyone? Or is it individualized? It varies. It depends based on a number of items. If you're an 85-year-old woman, do you have the same nutritional intake as a 44-year-old male? And if you are a college athlete, male or female, do you have the same caloric needs as a regular college athlete? So there's a number of factors that are going in there. So looking at different beverages that people drink, foods that are energy dense means that they have a lot of calories. Foods that are nutrient dense mean that they have a lot of nutrients based on the amount of calories. So almost all of these are the same. Here's orange juice, low fat 1% milk, regular cola, and bottled iced tea. So look, they all have about the same, between 150 and 168. So you can see that. Look at the added sugars, or total carbohydrates, excuse me. Look at the added sugars here. 38 grams, which is 119% in one beverage, 108 here. Fat, there's a little bit of fat here in milk. Protein, milk has protein. Not everyone can tolerate milk. Calcium, look at that, 1%, less than 1% for potassium. But vitamin C and vitamin A and vitamin D here. So these are nutrient dense, these are empty calories, because you get calories, but you get very little here. So becoming a vegetarian is a choice based on your values and other considerations. So if you're a vegan, what does that mean? That means that you use no animal products. And recently, in the past 15, 20 years, there are more restaurants that have vegan and vegetarian meals, but you have to be very educated for that. A lacto-vegetarian will use dairy products. A lacto-ovo will use dairy and eggs. And then there are different types, semi-vegetarians, partial, and a pesco will eat fish, but nothing that has a face. That's what they'll say. So assessing that, that's why we do the chronometer, and you do any 3 days of your life. You're not graded on what your nutritional intake looks like, but you have to do those 3 days. And if you have under 1,000 calories, you're going to lose points because of that. You need at least 1,000 calories every day. And we'll talk about that in the future. So if you could, what is one simple practical dietary change that you could make and sustain today? So when I taught this class, not exactly this class, but similar, at Cecil Community College, we had essays. It was a 3-credit class, so they had take-home essays. And the take-home essay was always about nutrition when it was on these chapters. And so I would say, what's one behavior that you could do? And all of them would be, not all of them, but most of them would be like, I'm going to stop eating fast food. So I'm like, you wake up late, you drive to school, you don't eat fast food, so you're starving. You have a class or two, and then you go to work. And again, you're not eating because you didn't meal prep. And then you get home, and on the way home, you finally stop and you overeat because you're starving, or you go home and there's nothing to eat. So what do you eat? You need to eat food. It's a necessity. So think about your eating, and using Cronometer will help you with that. What can you do to improve that with your portion sizes, whether or not you're getting enough vitamins and minerals? The point of the Cronometer is not for me to find out what you're eating, because I'm not the nutrition police, but it's for you to analyze, wow, I'm getting a lot of calories but not a lot of nutrients. Is that sustainable? What am I going to look like in 20 years? So what does a physically literate individual look like? That's why you are doing what you're supposed to be doing in the activity portion of the class. So how does your nutritional intake impact your physical wellness and your emotional wellness and all these other ones? And then how do these impact your nutritional choices? They go hand in hand. Trust me, it costs a lot more to go to Whole Foods and get organic and eat clean versus going other places where it's highly processed and it's not as expensive. Getting a half-gallon of real orange juice freshly squeezed is very expensive compared to getting some Sunny D or whatever that stuff is called, which is fake orange juice and disgusting, in my personal opinion. So, do you know what the essential nutrients are? Can you describe their functions? What does the U.S. government recommend, and where do those recommendations come from for these special populations? And then, do you know about a food label and other consumer tools to make informed choices about the foods that you eat? And are you going to work on having a better nutrition? Well, that ends Chapter 8. If you have any questions, make sure that you email me, and work on Cronometer. Move well, move often.